Thank you. I am the educator. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for having me. Victor and Ashley, thanks for inviting me. I got to do a Creative Mornings, I don't know, when was that, like 10 years ago? It was, yeah, it was at a downtown agency. And I had a blast then, so I was very excited to be welcomed back. And yes, I am an educator and an artist. I teach at Rollins College right down the road. So my goal is just to give you like an introduction to my creative practice and talk a little bit about what I do with some recent projects. I brought some work with me, which you're welcome to come and look at up close. You can even handle the books, as long as you don't have bagel cream cheese hands. I am cool with that. And I've got some little stickers up here for everybody when we're done too. So I thought around this theme of parallel, and I thought about, well, there are two things that kind of work in parallel in my practice, which is experimentation and collaboration. They're two kind of key components. Sometimes they're working in parallel, and sometimes they're working together at the same time. Okay, so there are two parts to this talk. One is going to focus on a recent project that I brought with me called Exactly Right. It's a limited edition artist book that I produced last year, and I will explain artist books as I go through this. It was recently collected by the Whitney Museum of Art, which I'm very chuffed about. So, and then the second part I'm going to talk about is a collaboration with a writer who teaches at UCF, Chrissy Colea. We have an ongoing project where we work together on a series of artist books and interventions. Those are the two components. So first, just a little intro to what I do every day. I'm usually in here in the studio at Rollins, wearing an apron, teaching students printmaking and book arts. I like to travel, so I've been all around the world to both, just experience the world, but also to make my work. And I do a lot of community-based projects. This one's called Flock, where I travel to communities. We go bird watching, and then we make prints based on the local birds that are available in that area to see at that particular season. I'm also interested in materiality. I work in between digital and analog processes. I go back and forth between those. This is our Vandercook in the Rollins printmaking studio, which is a machine from the 1960s. I use it to produce this book here called Dream of the Golden Empress, which you can see has an emphasis on using text as image. So I'm using historical wood type for this project. And my interest in text as image also is to break the text down, push it to a point where it might be less legible. You can see, like, I'm working with actual ink on paper for a lot of my projects. And I'm also an activist in the community as a queer artist. I'm interested in supporting the community through protests, through printmaking, through all the ways that I can as an artist. And this is my current project, My Florida. It's a really giant artist book. You can come and see it next month at the Rollins Museum of Art. We have a show opening on April 11th. There I am at a zine fest, that's St. Pete Zine Fest. And I also host conferences. I work with the College Book Art Association, and we are dedicated to promoting the education around book arts in various communities across the US. We do lots of cool collaborative projects together as well. This is one that we did at our last meeting where I asked the question, why do we love books? I also curate work. So we have a book arts collection at Rollins College that I founded in 2018. And I've used it in collaboration with other curators to produce shows, primarily at Rollins College. But this year, I'm producing a book art show at the Hamilton Wood Type Museum in Two Rivers, Wisconsin, which is has the largest collection of wood type in the US. And so our book arts community is going to be featured at Hamilton Wood Type this year. So that's just a little bit about all the all the things that I'm up to. So I thought I'd walk through Exactly Right. This is this recent project from last year. So I do work digitally, not all the time when I draw, but a lot of the time. And this project was really interesting because it kind of just started out with me doodling a lot and not really having a focus for that, just kind of drawing for pleasure. And then I started breaking those color layers apart into black and white, thinking that I would maybe use screen printing to produce some prints. But I got this risograph machine from this really awesome person I know at UCF who wasn't using it anymore. And then my whole life changed. And so all I wanted to do was produce risographs. And if you don't know what a risograph is, you're looking at one right now. It is like a screen printing machine that just pushes out prints, in this super fast, satisfying way, has lots of colors and this particular speckly texture that we all love about riso. So once I got the riso, I was starting to print, and then the risograph broke. So temporarily. And in the meantime, I was like, well, I'm just going to keep working on these pages. Something is happening here. I don't know what it is, but it's interesting to me. So I started integrating all kinds of other printmaking techniques in conjunction with the risographs that I'd already created. So this is some monotype printmaking where I'm printing on fabric and then pushing that onto the surface. You can just see how juicy those layers can get as you layer up a print. I started working on vellum with screen printing and letterpress, so back on that Vandercook that you saw earlier. And I just kept printing pages until I got to this point where I was like, I think this book is actually about making art. I think it's about the labor and the time and the creativity that it takes to make a project. And so I started writing some text at that point that related to what it's like to make book art. You have to do a lot of measuring. You have to do a lot of trial and error. You have to do sewing and binding and think about format and size and scale. And then I started using a laser cutter. I'm also a huge fan of using like Post-it notes and shiny tape in my work, things that are like really kind of commonplace craft materials or even office materials. You can see me there. I was collating the pages in my studio. I also got this donation of Braille paper, which is beautiful, tactile, and it encouraged me to make the book a much more tactile experience. So the book is called Exactly Right, and nothing about it is the same. Every single copy of it, there are 20 copies, are unique. They use the same selection of materials and pages, but they're all different. And they embrace this idea of experimenting and collaborating without sort of worrying about the outcome. And in many of my creative projects, they have to be like pretty well planned out. I have to know a lot about the size and the scale and the scope before I even begin. So this was really refreshing to me to just start printing and see what could happen, like what could the project become. And there's been a really nice response to this work, which I at first I thought was hilarious because I was like, oh, my most spontaneous, least planned out project is very popular. What is that all about? What about all the work that I plan out so carefully? But I think it's because it resonates with people, because if you're creative and you're kind of in a particular role, you're doing particular types of work, you can feel a little bit stifled by that. So this is the collaborative project that I mentioned with CreativeMornings. She is a writer, again, at UCF. She also writes poetry, novels, a wide range of different types of writing. And she had been doing this project where she was looking at The Economist magazine and looking at this particular column they have, which is about prediction and the act of predicting. And it was really fascinating to her. So she started going in and like grabbing text from The Economist to make poetry. And when I found that out, I was fascinated because I really like to work with found materials in my books. I work with magazines, existing books. I like to interact with them, alter them, cut them apart. So it was perfect. So I started designing this book after she gave me some of her poetry. So I took the poetry, I looked in my stack of vintage National Geographics and other books, and we started this project. This is us at the Kerouac House here in Orlando. We did this kind of explanation of the project. Here she's holding up a copy of The Economist. And then we did this prediction game with everybody who came to the Kerouac House, where we had a box of questions and a box of predictions. And everybody kind of could write a question or a prediction, and we mixed them up together. And then we read some of them aloud, and they were pretty funny. So we figured out that there were other people interested in not just in the work we were making, but in the process that we were developing to make the work as collaborators. And having people involved in our creative process has also shaped what we want to do. It's shaped the content of the work as well. So this is another work that came out of that workshop at the Kerouac House. These are spinners that I printed on the risograph that have questions and answers. So you can spin and get a question and spin and get an answer. And they're completely absurd. There's nothing about them that's going to guide you in your life. But is anything guiding us right now? I don't know, right? We're living in the most absurd times that we could ever possibly imagine. So having that reflected in the work is kind of interesting too. So I think my slideshow is done. What do you think? Let's see. Let's find out if there's anything else in here. Yeah, there you go. There's the end. Thank you. So I do have some books here, which I'm going to handle and show you, and then you can come up and look. And I also, during this time, you can ask me questions. I know that was a lot and fast. So if you want me to go back to anything or just explain anything else. Yes, you have a question.
Were you legacy or that more emotional?
I'm sorry.
W.K. said that you're lost at sea.
Oh, Lost at Sea. Yeah. So that particular page had an image of the ship that I took to Antarctica 15 years ago. And you might have seen the ship kind of repeated as a pattern. And the idea of it's okay to be lost at sea was directly related to making a project that I didn't know where it was going. I was just oh, okay, I'm going to embrace this feeling of not knowing what's going to happen and to be okay with that. The other kind of layer of that is that the ship that I took to Antarctica was lost. It's a ghost ship. It's never been found. They decommissioned it, and when they were hauling it away for scrap, it disappeared. So it has this whole interesting story in and of itself. It's literally lost at sea. So I was able to kind of connect those things in that book. And I have a bunch of artist books about that ship because I'm obsessed with it. Yeah.
You mentioned you do some stuff in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk more about some of the cooler things you got to do in that space?
Yeah, definitely. Community is so important to me. For years, I've been organizing things for my students to do in the community. Let's see, 2 years ago, I organized Inky Fingers, which was an event held at Aaron Sarkissian's space called Space Station, Orlando. And my students came and did Lego printing, and we did paper making. Oh my gosh, we did zine making. We had a zine table, and it was all free and open to the community. And there's a lot of other artists in the community like Aaron, like Ashley, like Victor, who are very community-minded, who are willing to organize events like that. Last year, Ashley and I worked with Mariah Russo to organize Orlando Zine Fest, which I've participated in for a number of years. But then it kind of didn't happen in 2023. And so I reached out to Mariah to offer to help her organize it. And then it was great. We had it at Blackbird Comics in Maitland. And they were fabulous partners. And if you've never been to Blackbird Comics, it is one of the coolest spaces in Orlando. It's very inclusive. It's very welcoming. It's not just about comics. They have like space where people can meet up. Like they host the Orlando Collage Club now. They host Orlando Zine Meetup now. It's like the place for community arts groups to meet up. So if you've not been over there or not been involved in any of those groups, you should definitely do that. Support Blackbird. Because they're like one of the only independent comic book shops that I can even think of in Central Florida. So they're fabulous. Yeah, so I do a lot of community organizing around that. Like when I was making those protest posters year before last, I was just sending them to people, and if they wanted to donate, they could donate to like Equality Florida. So as often as I can engage in community organizing, I do. Yeah.
You said a lot of your stuff is like found materials.
Yeah.
Do you have like any places that you recommend like looking for stuff as well?
Oh, heck yeah, I do. Have you been to Orange Tree Antiques? Called OTAM. They've rebranded. It's super cute. They're one of my favorite places to go. They're right on Mills, also called Orlando Ave in Winter Park. And they're so great. It's just like a big kind of indoor vendor mall. So yeah, there's lots of china and antique-y stuff, but there's also lots of old books and maps and vintage postcards and vintage photographs. So I'm like, you know, I just find my way to what's on paper in there, and that's, or typewriters if you really need a typewriter, right, Ashley? We need more I have like 8 typewriters. I don't need any more typewriters, but yeah, Orange Tree is fabulous. I would definitely recommend. There's also one in Oviedo called the Coop, I think, and that one is also full of really cool old books and magazines and stuff. My daughter's also an artist, and she does like 3D found sculpture collage, and those are 2 of her favorite places too. She likes to go get creepy baby doll heads and crucifixes and cabinets for her art. So, you know, yeah, if you're into like finding objects or finding books, I'd say do that stuff. And then like markets like Renninger's big antique market, those sorts of things are good. There's a lot of that stuff here in Central Florida. Yep.
So you use the word like artist, like title artist.
Yeah.
You classify yourself as an artist, correct?
Oh, heck yeah, I do.
Because I'm like, the more work I see from graphic like designers, I feel like we are artists. You know,
Yeah.
we make art, we create art. What would you classify yourself as an artist? Like modern art, like contemporary, or abstract?
I'm a contemporary artist. Yeah, I often refer to myself as a book artist because that's primarily what I'm producing. Artist books are this really unique art form that combines all these skills that I'm talking about, like being a printmaker, being a designer, being a writer. I also consider myself to be a writer, and I can put all of those skills into this one complex art object. Artist books often like refer to the shape of the book or the history of the book, but then like you saw with this piece, like there are lots of ways to fold paper and create something that is book-like, that is not necessarily your traditional idea of a codex book, like a regular sort of open the cover, read the pages sort of book. So that's what I find so fascinating about book arts, is its ability to push our idea of what books are and what they're for, especially in the digital age when we might not be handling books quite as much. Why not make books into art objects as well? The collection at Rollins is available for y'all to look at. It's open to the public. You just have to get to our library on campus and go to the bottom floor archives, and they will pull books out for you, and you can look at the collection. We also often have chunks of the collection on view, either in the library or the museum. So it's also my goal to teach people about artist books because I love them so much. Yep.
So for exactly right, you did a lot of experimentation. What technique would you say is your favorite?
Oh my gosh, I like throw everything. Like it's everything in the kitchen sink. Like I do a lot of relief printing. So what you see here is actually printed Legos. I don't know if you've ever done any Lego printing, but Legos have there's a particular kind called dots that's flat, and you snap it on a Lego board, and then you roll them up with ink and apply pressure, and then you can print Legos. So when I did this project, which is about a fictional character called the Golden Empress, she basically has to defeat a corrupt emperor with her wicked dance moves. So she's sort of like a magical, mythical beast with horns and all kinds of things. So what's cool about working with the Legos is once you set up like your main figure for the body, you can just move an arm or a leg, and then it's almost like stop motion animation. You can produce the effect that this is a figure who's moving in space. So yeah, lately I've been interested in that. I've been interested in working with the risograph. And this is stuff that I teach too, so all of my students get to engage in that. My students are currently working on Lego prints right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so as you talked about before, some of your goals come from teaching with the students and other people about the history of art goals or how you can compose them. Would you say that it's a collection of different, inspirations that you accumulated throughout your life? Where would they be from? What other artists have you, personally enjoyed?
That's an excellent question. Thank you. Yeah, I would say that I'm inspired. So I actually went to Rollins for my undergrad, and I got to do this program, which was like really interdisciplinary. So we were encouraged to study, let's say, a problem like climate change through the lens of philosophy, psychology, environmental studies. And that way of thinking, that interdisciplinary way of thinking, informed my practice. When I got to art school, I was actually like, okay, I'm gonna go make all this mixed media art, and I'm gonna be doing this and this. And my thesis advisor was like, could you just paint? Because you're in the painting program. And I was like, meh. But I was also back in the old days. So my interests are science, natural history, social issues, personal narratives. And so all of those interests kind of find their way back into the work. A lot of my work has an environmental focus, but not all of it. And I find a book, let's say I find a copy of the 1973 Olympics published in German with beautiful photographs of athletes, okay? Maybe that's not something I thought about before, but there's something about the quality of that book and its aura that I want to engage with. And so things that are already printed like that exist in the world just call to me, and I want to interact with them and use them as raw material. So I have a lot of that kind of practice, I guess, which I apparently have passed down to my daughter, except she likes working with sculpture instead of print material. Other questions? Yeah.
I have more of a comment. When you were showing the spinning project, right?
Oh, the little wheels, yeah.
Yeah, with like an answer and a prediction, question and prediction.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like the Dada movement. I feel like you're like kind of dabbling, or maybe purposefully, like neo-Dada, like you're starting at the times that we're in, just kind of engaging with how like certain things are right now.
Yeah, the surrealists also would play games like that, which or cut out some stuff and kind of throw it down and then glue it wherever it fell. So I think that's part of it for sure, the absurdity. I think when we did that event at the Kerouac House, it was so much fun because it became like there were serious things that people were writing about. It was before the election, so there was a lot of sort of prediction about that. But then there was a lot of silliness too, and I think it kind of relieved the tension around us waiting to get to the election and figure out what was going on. So I think the absurdity is like a coping mechanism, I guess. Yeah.
So I got kind of a two-parter. How do you find or end up working with your collaborators, and what is it about those projects with people that draws you to those collaborations?
That is an awesome question. How do I find collaborators? Usually I become aware of them in some capacity, like their professional work, or I have to kind of suss out if they're going to be fun to hang out with and also fun to be productive with. Ashley's one of those people. Fun to hang out with, also we can be very productive together. So when I'm looking for a collaborator, I'm looking for somebody whose pace matches mine, who I feel like we have enough in common that we can find some things that we're both really excited about working on together. I also like to collaborate with people who are really different from me too. I just have to sort out if that's going to be productive or not, or result in a project. And not all collaborations do result in physical, pieces of art. But reaching out to people who have different skill sets than I do is also really great. Like to work with Chrissy, she's a writer in the most literary sense of that word. She has brought me into the literary community here in Orlando. She and I are going to work on a book for a local publisher together, and I've started reading my artist books at literary events, which might seem like, duh, it's a book, you're a writer, but for an artist, that's a whole leap. And there's a group of book artists across the US right now who are organizing events around reading from our artist books. So it's a thing that we haven't thought of. I mean, artist books have only been around since I've been alive. It's a very, like in terms of a form of contemporary art books go back, millennia. But artist books in this form of work is really relatively new. So we're all trying to figure out, like, what do we do with this genre? How do we activate it? What are the spaces we can occupy? And it turns out a lot of us are also writers in addition to being artists. So we are starting to occupy those spaces as well, writing, being around writers, identifying as writers. So all of that is a way of thinking about, like, yes, my collaboration with Chrissy is one of those things is led me to expand my notion of my own identity, which is really cool.
You said before that you'll sometimes organize community events and with your students or other ones. Do you have any tips for other people that are trying to know about that, or is it just content people who listen to these things?
I think you have to go to things and talk to people, right? Or be a vendor at a market. Talk to everybody who comes by your table. Find out what they're doing, why they're there, what they're about. One of the zine fests that I went to and participated in was called Bleh. It was held at Stardust a couple of years in a row. And because I had risographs at the table, people who were interested in risographs, we just started chatting. And it turned out there were all these people that wished we had a community risograph shop in town. And we started this dialogue and tried to organize a space like that. I think it's still something that I'd like to focus on and work on. But if I hadn't chatted those people up at a zine fest, I wouldn't know, right? And then going to groups that are already meeting. I run a group called the Book Arts Guild of Orlando, of Central Florida, and we meet at the Winter Park Library. We do free workshops every month on how to do different bookbinding techniques, collage, drawing, anything that is related to the skills of the group. And I meet people there who want to do other things together, like other events and organize things. So just meeting people, going to events, going to existing groups, doing what you're doing right now, meeting people and talking to new people is the way that you can form collaborations that lead to maybe community events. Yeah. Yes, you can come get a sticker. Here you go. You got a question, Ashley?
Yeah. I don't even know how to form it, but so I'm just gonna bomb it.
Okay.
But I think what you taught me a lot in the last 2 years, and what I love most about the first zine you showed us, book that you showed us, was that you didn't have the idea until halfway into making it or some part of it. And
Yeah.
I think the educator in me is ooh, full audience, full students. I think that is so liberating in a way.
Yeah.
I just want to highlight that I think we often suffer from I need to have a good idea, execute it, and then, but I guess could you talk more about just making and thinking, and then the idea comes to you eventually?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I can't articulate.
No, I appreciate that. Here, while I'm answering this question, I'll turn this book around to the other side. I do have projects where they feel more planned out, but I'm also pretty nimble. And so and I'm also an educator, right? So I'm teaching, I'm at work, I have an hour between a class and another class. I'm very likely going to throw something on the Vandercook and start printing. So actually, this book started very much the same way. I was cleaning up some wood type from a lesson. I had like this whole group, even bigger than my normal class, come in and just learn about wood type, and we pulled some out. And I had a bunch to put away. And I had this one tray, it was full of wood type, and I looked at it, and for some reason I was like, wonder what I could spell with the letters that are sitting on this tray. So I did. I made a phrase, and I made one of these compositions. It's like a 6-line composition, and it was a poem. And I had just listened to a song by Empress of. Y'all know that artist, Empress of? So the word Empress was like in my head. And I think the first one, I don't even know which was the first one. Maybe it's this one. It says, Empress, fly over barren gold courts. And I was also thinking about political corruption, how power can corrupt. And then after I did that one, I kept the same tray of letters and I just kept reorganizing them to see if I could spell other phrases. And then eventually I was like, okay, I've run out of options there. I'm going to start to add letters, but I still want to keep this like 6-line format. And I printed these for a couple of months, again, before I figured out what the heck the book was going to be about. And then when I did, I wrote this story about the Empress. So I'd like kind of created a character, which I do often in my work as well. And then the character's story is here kind of in between these, I guess what I think of as protest posters. So it just developed from there. Maybe it's a function of just having sometimes little chunks of time in which I can make things. And I'm most happy when I'm making things. So actually, if I have a super stressful day at work, I will still take an hour to make something because I feel better. So I take these little chunks and I make things, and then sometimes those turn into projects. And then other times I have like, okay, I'm gonna make this project about my experience living in Florida, growing up in Florida. And so that one I had a little bit more of an organized approach for. But I still had to go like figure out how that was gonna look and work. It's probably different too. If you're a designer, you have like things that are given to you, tasks that are given to you to do. And so your creative box has boundaries set out by a client. When you're working purely on art for art's sake, then those boundaries are only the things that you impose upon yourself.
Thank you.
I don't know if that answers anything that you asked, but 10%. Okay. All right. So I'm happy to have y'all come up and look at some of the books. We can chat some more, but sound good? Okay. Thank you.